Welcome to the News Hour. Heavily armed police are cracking down on protesters in Russia as they demonstrate in defiance of government orders. So they're demanding the release of jailed opposition politician Alexey Navalny. As you can see, hundreds of people have been arrested across the country. In some areas, entire rallies have been broken up. And in Moscow, activists are being dragged away like that as soon as they come out onto the street. This is the second week of demonstrations, which have been held in multiple cities. And warnings from Russia's Interior Ministry have seen crowds shrink, but thousands have still turned out regardless. So Alexey Navalny was arrested 2 weeks ago when he arrived from Germany. That's where he'd been recovering from a poisoning. He blames the Kremlin for the attack, which it denies. We'll get an update now with Aleksandra Godfroid. She's joining us from Moscow. Talk us through the scale of these protests, because we are seeing them right across the country.
Yes, indeed. Like last week, this is the second week in a row that they are going across the country, so from the Far East, over Siberia, over the Ural mountain towns, and then into European part of Russia. In the Far East, they're already finished. A lot of people have been detained, especially in Vladivostok, where the people were pushed on the ice or frozen Amur River Bay, and then they were detained there. We see that there were a couple of thousands of people in Yekaterinburg, which is in Ural Mountains, and other towns indeed across Russia. But here in Moscow, people don't get a chance to gather, since they are detained almost immediately, and the whole of the very center of Moscow is completely sealed off. The metro trains are not stopping there, the buses are not going, and pedestrians cannot enter that area. So the protest meeting points have been moved away from that point, but that is not helping, because as you can see, people are being very swiftly detained by the police.
Yeah, and people don't really seem to have that much fear, because they seem to be coming out, even though, as you're saying, there's a risk that they will be detained and they are getting arrested.
Yes, indeed, there is a very fair chance that the moment you show up, you will be detained. People don't even manage to say something. They're not taking out their transparents. But the ones that are coming to protest, they show no fear. They know that most probably in a matter of 10 minutes, they will end up in one of the vans, like the one behind me, one of the paddy vans, and then they will be taken off. But despite that, the ones that are determined to show their protest are coming out of the streets of Moscow.
Okay, Alexandra, thank you so much for that update from Moscow. Let's speak to Vladimir Sotnikov. He's a political scientist at the Russia Academy of Sciences. He's joining us from Moscow as well. Thanks very much for your time with us. How concerning is all of this for Vladimir Putin?
These protests are taking place on a bigger and bigger scale and will continue because Mr. Navalny has in mind the September elections to the State Duma. I think that keeping in mind that 20–25% and supporting the President Vladimir Putin in Russia, and in total about 40% supporting the President Putin administration. I think that that's not a big deal for President Putin. The only thing which is probably worrying him, that a lot of people are coming to the streets to support Mr. Navalny, because Mr. Navalny is regarded a hero. We here in Russia, for a very long time haven't had such a hero like Mr. Navalny. Look, he was almost poisoned. He came to Germany and then he returned to Russia on purpose, because he knew that he would be arrested and even tried and probably could be jailed. So I think that that is the big concern for President Putin. These protests, especially
right.
economic conditions, worsening economic conditions under the conditions.
Yeah, that's my question to you. I mean, are these protests about Navalny himself, or are people protesting against the other issues that are important to them, corruption in the country, as you were just saying, economic problems?
Yes. Yes, economic problems, growing and even mounting economic problems and unpaid salaries, so that the sacking from the jobs, and people cannot find another job, and a lot of families are living on very low on a very low wages. So this is economic demands, and another people. Second, the people are just going to support Navalny because they regarded him as a hero. A lot of people, especially in the regions of Moscow. And thirdly, that is because a lot of people supporting Navalny because he is a hero. He is a hero.
So what will the government
Russia
do next? I mean, we've seen the authorities trying to clamp down on the protests. They're arresting people. There's police presence, as our reporter was saying, on the street. What more will the government do?
That's hard to say right now. I can presume that the more protests will go on, and they certainly will go on, especially keeping in mind that Mr. Navalny will be brought to court and he just under arrest. So those sympathizing with Mr. Navalny will be taken down to the streets despite the arrests and despite any detainment. So I think that probably the government could have more crack on the protesters, but it won't help because economic demands, economic conditions are pushing people to the streets, and not only that because Mr. Navalny is a hero. And probably there will be more tight reactions against the protesters. So we see that these protests seems to be the biggest protests in the history of Russia since I don't know, since probably 90s.
Okay, Vladimir Sotnikov, we thank you very much for speaking to us from Moscow.